So we're going to do some practice today. It's going to be a guided meditation that is part of the Beauty Bhavana practices. There's many different ways to do Beauty Bhavana. This is one of my favorite ways to do it. And what we're looking for when we do this practice is we're keeping the awareness in the body, and we're keeping an eye out for piti. Is there any tingliness? Is there any pleasure arising? We're doing this in a relaxed manner, not a very intent or rigid manner. We're staying loose. Because if you're too tight, piti is not going to arise. If you're too worried about if piti is going to arise, it's not going to arise. Before we do this practice, I want to share a story. It's a very famous story from the Buddha's life. It comes from the day in which he became awakened, when he became a Buddha, which means awakened one. At this point in the Buddha's life, he was not the Buddha. He was a prince named Siddhartha Gautama, who left his kingdom, left his clansmen, the Sakyan clan in India about 2,600 years ago. And he sort of gave up his princely possessions and went into the forest looking for freedom, looking for enlightenment. And somewhere along the way, he started engaging in these practices that were very harsh. It's sort of like self-mortification. Essentially, he was starving himself, and he was practicing pain as a practice, as a base. So in India at the time, many yogis were trying this, and their theory was that when you feel pain all the time, but you allow it, that may lead to enlightenment, because pleasure didn't seem to go there. And Siddhartha, who knows why he engaged in this, but it may have been because he was a prince with all the princely pleasures. He had, 3 different palaces for each season in India. He had pretty much anything you could ever ask for as a human being. He was just living a life steeped with sensual pleasure, and he was a very successful and sort of well thought of prince. He had praise, he had prestige. That didn't get him to enlightenment. So he spent 6 years practicing these really horrific sort of things, and the main thing that comes to mind is starvation. It's said that he became so thin that if you touched his belly, you could feel his backbone. So really just hanging on to the edges of life. And I think it's possible as well that for a yogi who's quite advanced in meditation, you can probably sustain life in this sort of position for quite some time. So he's practicing, and he has a memory. It's a memory of a time when he was a child, a very young child, and he was sitting under a rose apple tree in his kingdom, in his sort of father's backyard. And his father was plowing the fields, and he was sitting there with a bunch of the women who helped raise him. The Buddha's mother actually passed away when he was young, so he was raised by, collection of servants and women. If you can imagine this, right, on maybe a cool summer's day, sitting in the shade of a tree as a child, knowing your father is close, doing work on the field, being surrounded by those who love you. It's a beautiful scene. It's a scene of safety. There are several mothers on this call right now. You can imagine how nice it feels when your child is sitting outside in nature, surrounded by loved ones. And so when Siddhartha was in this position, he spontaneously went to the first jhana, a beautiful, pleasurable state of mind in which one feels unified, one is collected, all your resources are there, you feel strong. But in particular, what stands out in the mind is this quality called piti, physical bliss, rapture, this tingliness in the body. So the Buddha, while he's starving himself, has this memory, and he realizes that this thing that he experienced is blameless. It wasn't something to be feared or blamed. He realizes that it's humane, it's pure. And probably he saw that it was something innate. As a child, I think most people, when they hear the story, they think, oh, wow, the Buddha was so amazing as a child. He went to the first jhana, this state that is only for the best monks or yogis in the world who spent hours and hours in meditation. But the Buddha didn't say that. I don't take it to suggest that at all. In fact, quite the opposite. For me, this makes me realize that this stage called the first jhana, and this territory of samadhi is something that's innate. It's waiting to be found within us. In fact, a child can find it. It's so closely connected to what it means to be human that a child can find it. So the Buddha actually decides that he's going to stop practicing pain because he senses the purity and the blamelessness of this pleasure. And when he makes this decision, something clicks, and he just sort of knows, he has a real conviction that he's found the path to peace. So he stirs up determination, and he actually says that he's not going to move until he finds nibbana, or nirvana, what's called enlightenment, because he senses that he's close. And so he enters into this path of pleasure, in the path of the jhanas or samadhi, and he becomes fully awakened. And the Buddha actually says, he says, I teach pleasure. I teach pleasure. And this is really important for us to remember as meditators. Most of us, when we sit down to meditate, we don't experience pleasure. And when I say most of us, I'm referring to, I would say, how most people conceptualize meditation. If you're seeking focus and concentration and you're trying to make your mind rigid and one-pointed, I mean, does any of that sound pleasurable? You might find sort of a back door to pleasure that way, but it's good for us to know that what we're doing is something that a child could do. It's something that should be pleasurable, immensely pleasurable. Okay, so how are we going to take this story and turn it into practice? So this is one of my creative endeavors. And so for this beauty bhavana practice, we're going to imagine ourselves sitting somewhere beautiful. It could be under the shade of a tree. And imagine ourselves surrounded by our loved ones, people that care for us. It could be family members, friends, pets, children, parents, anyone that evokes a sense of love. It could be a spiritual teacher. It could be, someone like the Buddha or a God or, Jesus. It doesn't really matter. You can be kind of creative and you have full reign to decide who gets invited to your little picnic. But make sure it's people that you love, people that you don't have complicated relationships with. And then you're just going to just try and evoke a sense of safety from imagining them with you, and evoke a sense of beauty, a sense of appreciation. And as we've discussed in other talks of this retreat, if you're able to feel good, feel pleasure from this exercise, then you get creative and you try to find ways to increase that pleasure. How do we maximize the enjoyment? What you'll find is that there's actually a spectrum of subtlety here. So the more you enjoy it, the more subtle your attention can become. It's not the more concentrated you are, it's the more refined the attention is. So in other words, you may need to use a lot of words and images in the beginning, but as you get a hang of it, you can continue that, but maybe you try actually using less words or less images, and you're more just feeling what's there, stepping into what's there, like you're sunbathing, like you're just letting the sun get soaked into your skin. It's like that. And eventually, maybe words are no longer needed, and there's just a sense of this piti arisen in the body. And from there, you're just intent on enjoying it or spreading it or stabilizing it. So let's go ahead and find our way to a comfortable posture. Spread your awareness throughout the whole body. We're doing this in a relaxed manner, and we're just feeling the body. And when you're ready, you can imagine that you're somewhere that feels safe. It could be under the shade of a tree on a beautiful day in the park, or in your backyard, or somewhere in nature. And in this field, you're surrounded by the people who love you the most, the people who you love the most, your nearest and dearest friends and family. And in this moment, it's like no one is really talking. Everyone is just enjoying each other's company. Everyone is indulging in each other's presence. And there's a real feeling of safety, kinship, love. Take a few moments to think about and acknowledge each of the people that you've invited here. As we do this, we're keeping one eye or half an eye on the body. How does the body feel to be in the presence of these loved ones, to feel safe, to feel the beauty of this moment, of this scene? There's a beauty here. Can you adjust your frequency to it? Can you make yourself more sensitive towards the beauty? Can you allow the beauty to penetrate, to suffuse with your cells? This is subjective, not objective. It's art, it's poetry, it's not science. Can you surrender yourself to the beauty? Abandon yourself in it, lose yourself in the beauty. As we bring this session to a close, let us share the blessings from this practice with all living beings. May all living beings benefit from this practice. May they all be well, happy, and peaceful. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And what I'd like to do now is do a round of sharing. I'm curious how that felt for you. But I want to do this a little quickly unless there's something that really needs to be attended to because I have a lot of material I'd like to get through. So the way we'll do this is whenever you'd like, just come off mute and maybe say a few sentences, a few words, really whatever you'd like about the experience. If you have questions, you can state them. And then what we'll do is for the rest of us, and if you can come on video, but if you can't, that's okay. And for the rest of us, since we won't have time to respond, there are a few hand motions that I like to use if anyone would like to. It's totally optional. So you can place your hands together if you want to honor something that someone said. You can place your hand on your chest if you want to show that you're touched by something that someone said. You can smile, or you can simply stay put. there's no need to do that, but it can be a nice way to connect with others in this Zoom environment. So yeah, when you're ready, please come off mute and share what that experience was like for you.
I caught myself drifting a little bit too much, being in the moment, enjoying the beauty. I think it partly because I've had a long day, a long weekend, and had to fight to bring myself back to the present. Was kind of drifting a little bit too much.
Thanks, Matt.
I thought I had drifting away trademarked, but I guess Matt, we were on the same page today. I had a similar I had a similar feeling with as Matt in that I keep comparing this retreat to the Five Hindrances retreat just because they were very thematically very different for me. But I find myself I felt myself just particularly seeing beauty in a lot of today. So I found myself drifting while I meditated as well today. But it was on, I think the environment and on things around me, and it was all positive. So I guess I see it as drifting away, but I'm not necessarily sure. But yeah, I found myself. I find the sensation of appreciating beauty to be something that's inherently distracting for
me. Interesting. Thank you, Nassal. Remind me to talk about that if I forget towards the end. Anyone else?
I feel like I got distracted in the other way where I was trying to create an image and I felt like I kept getting distracted away from the imagery I was trying to create.
Thank you, Pod. And remember, we're not looking to just be focused and have unwavering attention. We're not even interested in evaluating our meditation in that way. Remember I said that in the first talk? When I asked how a meditation was, I don't want you to even think about how focused you were, let alone express it in a way. Even if there's a single moment of beauty in the meditation, that should be the way you think about the meditation. Because again, we're looking to perceive beauty. So it's funny, it's like eventually that comes to your words even, where even if your mind is running here and there throughout the session, what stands out to you is that one beautiful moment. But right now, what may stand out to you is the 1,000 moments where your mind was running away. Right? So think about that. This is actually part of inclining the mind towards beauty. But of course, express yourself honestly. Just keep that in mind. We're not looking for focus. We're looking for beauty. And beauty allows for a lack of focus at times. Is there anyone else who would like to share before we go on?
I wanted to add, Ranga, I felt that one of the things I was thinking most about during this was just the beauty of nature. And I was also drifting a lot, but to different instances of where I felt the profound beauty of nature. And mostly I was going to past experiences where I just was very touched by different scenes of nature.
Very nice. Thank you, Kritika. Anyone else? So maybe I'll just say a blanket statement. I think everything that was offered just then is beautiful to me. All of this is part of the practice. And this is important because we don't want to contextualize it in thinking that like, oh, I wasn't practicing mudita today or something like that. This is all part of mudita practices. The hindrances, the distractions, the difficulties, it's part of the game, and it's just par for the course when you practice meditation.